After America de facto won the space race, there were a bunch of amazing concepts for the future of the Saturn rocket family, all of which tragically never materialized. One of the more bonkers ideas was the Saturn V 4X, coming from a 1968 study by Boeing that proposed strapping 4 Saturn V first stages together to obtain a £1 million payload, each core having 5 F1 engines and each having a standard length Saturn V second stage with 5 J2 engines. This is quite possibly one of the most Kerbal designs to ever be proposed in real life. I mean, check out this animation of how it might have looked by the amazing Hazegrayart. I implore you to watch the full thing. I've linked it in the description and on screen if you click that card on the top right. Anyway, I just had to make this in Kerbal Space Program. The Making History DLC gives us Saturn V parts, so this should be doable in stock. Now, I had to make some changes to the way the staging would have worked, because in order for the stacks to blend together with the singular massive upper fairing piece, part clipping was needed, which caused a few issues with things exploding during staging events, as I am now showcasing you here in this little blooper reel. So, and now I've crossfaded to the full final build time-lapse, I had to make a choice to either have the 4 Saturn V stacks not blend with the upper stage, if that makes sense, or have them do so, which is what I wanted, but change the way the staging works, so that now the entire lower half of the payload fairing drops away with the 4 Saturn V upper stage cores still attached. This was all really difficult to articulate, by the way, but I hope this was easy enough to visualize. Anyway, this rocket was never built in real life, so I guess none of this really matters, as I'm sure the design would have seen many changes from the original 1968 proposal. I achieved the huge diameter of the upper payload section by using fairings, and the maximum diameter of the 3.75 meter fairing piece was conveniently the exact diameter as the lower stage of this rocket, making it really easy to marry up the two fairings that comprise the upper stage of this rocket. But what's going to go in that massive upper fairing? Well, that's what I'm building right now. I didn't really have a plan as such, but I at least wanted it to be a crewed vehicle so that we could take our Kerbals somewhere to plant a flag. And since we have a gigantic payload fairing in which to place it, I decided I could make this thing as wide as I wanted, and I ended up with this. I think it's a really cool looking lander. It has a real retro futurism vibe to it. I think it has some resemblance to the Delta Clipper SSTO concept and to the North American Rockwell Mars excursion vehicle, both vehicles that I definitely need to cover at some point on this channel. And, you know, while I'm discussing this channel's meta, I think this video has good potential to be the first video in a series that I'm calling Cursed Rockets of History. Crazy ideas that wouldn't look out of place in Kerbal Space Program, but would be absolutely insane to be proposed in real life, even though they actually were. I've already done the UR700 a few years back, but other good candidates for this series would be the Jupiter 3X Super Heavy, the Hammerhead Fairing Space Shuttle, SRB-X, Starship Block 3 if they go ahead with the current design, and loads more. So if you have any suggestions, then let me know in the comment section below. And hey, if you are enjoying this video, then leaving a little like down below while you're down there really does help me survive the tyranny of the algorithm these days. Anyway, it looks like construction of the rocket is more or less done. The one thing I decided to add at the very end were loads of, I was about to say stickers for some reason, flag pieces. One of the reasons I showed you the Hazegrayart video at the beginning of this video is because I really liked how they added the big red numbers to each of the 4 Saturn V first stages. It just looked, I don't know, it just looked really cool, I guess. So I decided to do the same. So I made these custom flags in Photoshop. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. We've of course got the NASA logo and the Lowne Aerospace Worm logo, and I guess the OG logo as well. And I slapped a couple of NASA and Lowne logos on the little the lander. I haven't specified where this thing is going to land, because at this point in the construction of this vehicle, I hadn't yet decided where I was going to send this. Obviously, we should be going fairly far, right? Because, you know, it's a huge rocket with a really high capacity lander. So I had a little look at the map screen, see what we were kind of closest to the transfer window of, and look at that. Kerbin is almost 82 degrees behind Dres, which happens to be the Kerbin to Dres transfer window, and Dres actually takes a surprisingly high amount of delta V to go to because of its kind of high orbit. So I thought, hey, what a great place to go for this mission. And it turned out that, well, there was some there was some issues along the way with this. Well, you'll have to, I'm not going to spoil it, but trials and tribulations were, you know. And here we are, blasting off the launch pad. I've sped the footage up to make the frame rate a little bit more tolerable for you guys. Now, I'm going to initiate the gravity turn in a second, and normally I do this by, you know, tapping the D key on the keyboard. But do you guys see an issue? Because there is an issue right now, and when I was playing the game and recording this, hadn't noticed it yet. But ready? I'm about to notice it. Ready? Here we go. Yes, I realized I was pitching north instead of to the east, which is where we want to be pitching, because that's, you know, along the equatorial line, and that's, you know, with Kerbin's rotations, we maximize our efficiency during ascent. Yeah, I had rotated the cockpit of the spacecraft to align with the ladders that I placed in the wrong place, basically, and I'd forgotten about this when I launched, so yeah, the nav ball was kind of a bit twisted. So I then spun the rocket around so I could tap the D key, and it was all kind of, I could use the muscle memory I had for you know, launching rockets. But yeah, that was kind of a funny little beginning to the mission, I guess. I wasn't too worried because we've got such a powerful first stage that we couldn't possibly ever in this mission, hypothetically speaking, of course, be facing a point where we're running out of Delta V and can't get back home. No. But here, that was such a long-winded tangent that we've actually run out of fuel in the first stage in 3, 2, 1. There we go. So now we're going to stage. And yeah, I said this could be a good episode of a series called Cursed Rockets. Well, there you go. That was very cursed Korolev cross, right? They were like, those first stage boosters were attached using inline decouplers, not radial decouplers. So why they were ejected like that, I'm not quite sure. But it looked quite nice for the video, so I guess I'm kind of glad it happened like that in the end. But yeah, I'll speed the footage up even more as we head on our way to orbit. Now, as you can see, we have a monstrous amount of Delta V in this kind of second stage of the rocket. We got over 3.5 kilometers per second of Delta V. So we're actually going to use this stage to get all the way to Dres, and we'll detach it so that it crashes into Dres's surface. That's how much Delta V we have in this stage. And we have an enormous amount of Delta V in the lander stage as well. So I was very relaxed at this point about being able to get home safely. Now, as you can see, our apoapsis is above 70 kilometers, which is the border between the atmosphere and space in Kerbal Space Program. So now we can just time warp to our apoapsis and circularize, but not before deploying our payload fairing. Oh, it was all fine. This was kind of the most difficult part of the vehicle to engineer, trying to have the fairing deploy, or, you know, the lower stage deploy, without anything exploding. And I feel like I have accomplished this goal. So there we are. If that's not worthy of a like, I don't know what is. Anyway, we're now time warping up to wrap up this point. There we are. And we have circularized in low Kerbin orbit. So the next step of our mission is opening up the map screen and plotting a maneuver to get us to Dres. Now, getting to Dres is kind of easier said than done, because although we're kind of at roughly the right transfer window, I think we are a little bit past the ideal transfer window, but we're still more or less in the right spot. As you can see from the map screen here, Dres is at a very, very inclined orbit around the sun compared to Kerbin, so we need quite a substantial mid-course correction burn. That being said, we have 3,293 meters per second left in our Saturn V 4XU rocket, so I honestly wasn't that bothered about being, you know, super efficient, because, again, I want to crash this stage into the surface of Dres. We're not leaving debris left in deep interplanetary space, so we're never, ever going to use all of our fuel budget. So whatever maneuver node gets us there, I'm happy with, because we are going to be ditching a substantial amount of fuel once we get to the Dres system anyway. So we have our first burn plotted. Normally, you know, in this channel, I'm usually using the nuclear engines for super efficient flights, but because we have you know, 20, no, we got more than that actually, because we got 5, 10, 15, 20 J2 engines, but I have 2 other engines. I think they're the swivel engines in the center of the stack. So we have 22 engines powering this stage. So this very, very big burn is going to take a mere 1 minute and 37 seconds, according to the Kerbal Space Program kind of burn predictor thing at the bottom of the screen. So yeah. And whilst I was saying all of that, we've basically already done the burn. Ready? Oh, just a little bit more. There we are. All done. So, yeah, we've done our interplanetary burn. Not quite done the difficult part of this mission yet, which is doing the inclination change to get our Dres encounter, but that's what I'm plotting now on the map screen. Again, this is by no means the most efficient way of reaching Dres, but Again, I must bring to your attention how much delta V we have in this rocket, although we are just deploying the solar panels that are basically completely occluded by what remains of the fairing. We do have some RTGs clipped into, well, not clipped into, but contained within the gigantic payload fairing base on the kind of lower stage of this rocket. And here we are doing our mid-course correction burn. Well, I had a bit of a sound glitch where, like, occasionally the engines would be, like, really, really loud. I'm just saying this in case I don't edit this video very well, and it's very apparent that those engines were very loud for a brief second there. I will try and go through this video with, like, a fine-tooth comb, checking the audio levels, but yeah, I had this weird glitch where, like, it was really, really, like, peaking and very, very loud for some reason. I guess just because the game isn't great at handling 22 engines burning at once, although this is Kerbal Space Program, right? So it is in the nature of the game to be able to simulate these things, so I'm not really sure what happened there. But as you can see, there is Dres on the map screen. I'm just fine-tuning now a final maneuver that's going to get us there. Now, I plotted a quick maneuver here just to see if we have delta V in the Saturn V second stage. Well, it's not the Saturn V, you know what I mean? In the second stage of the rocket to circularize the Dres before ditching it. But, alas, we do not. So, what I'm going to do now is kind of get ourselves on an encounter with the Dres system, which we've done, obviously. And then I'm going to try and get ourselves on a collision course with Dres. And then once we enter Dres' sphere of influence, we will detach the lower stage so that it crashes at great interplanetary speed into the surface of Dres, completely destroying it. And, of course, therefore, providing protection for the habitat of the space dolphins and, of course, the solar bears. And that is more or less done. Wait for it. There we go. The collision course hath been set, therefore there's nothing else to do other than time warp to our encounter with the Dres system. Now I've left the map screen. Oh yes, I forgot to deploy our communications antenna, and we had no connection to Kerbal Space Center, but that has now been rectified. We have full communications with our space center. So here we are, ready, and there we are. We have entered the Dres system. Now, truth be told, guys, I know it's a bit of a meme that Dres doesn't exist and Dres is boring, and yes, those are true. But I do also think that in the same vein, oh, by the way, look at that. I have detached the lower stage and it was all fine. So I'm performing a quick radial outburn so that our lander does not collide with the surface of Dres like the lower stage will. But anyway, yes, as I say, although Dres, yeah, kind of is a boring place to visit, right? It is still underrated. It's weird to say that in the same sentence, but bear with me, guys, because it has what I think one of the best geological features in Kerbal Space Program. That is its amazing canyon. And also, Dres has an asteroid ring. So if you want to capture asteroids, then go to Dres, I guess, and you can capture asteroids from Dres' orbit. So yeah, we're going to be, of course, we've got to land in the Dres Canyon. Why wouldn't we? And that's one of the things that really pains me about the tragedy of Kerbal Space Program 2, because Kerbal Space Program 2 made Dres. It still wasn't that interesting, alright, but it was much more interesting than KSP1's Dres, because it added far more, like, dramatic canyons, and it wasn't just grey, it wasn't just, like, a manipulated picture of the Mun as the beam goes. It was way more, it was way better. And this reminds me, there's a mod I need to check out at some point. So I'm saying this before someone tells me in the comments, because I am aware of this. There's a mod called, I think it's called Proximus Better Dres Mod. And it basically, this person modded Dres in KSP1 to make it look like Dres in KSP2. So I will be checking that mod out at some point, because, my goodness, I'm very, very sad about the Dres we could have had in KSP2. But as you can see on the map screen, I'll put a little arrow there. There is the Dres Canyon. That's where we're aiming to land. So, yeah, let's do that, right? You know? So it wasn't the most efficient landing, right? I basically just time warped until we were over the canyon, and I was like, oh, my goodness, I've left this too late. So we're going to just bleed off all of our horizontal velocity in one big burn, and then we're going to descend down to try and find a relatively flat spot. I have custom landing gear on this lander, so we're not using the normal landing legs. I've just got some struts with some grip pads on the bottom, because they just seem to work a lot better than the normal landing legs in KSP, because you don't slide around on the surface when you land. That being said, I was still trying to land somewhere relatively flat. I reckoned this dark regolith area would be that, and I guess it was. So there we are, touched down on the surface of the Dres Canyon. Now the next thing to do is, of course, deploy our ladders. There we are, and we can open up our service bay as well, which contains a Science Junior. I didn't bother adding the other science experiments to this vehicle, right? Because we've already unlocked the whole science tree, because I'm still playing in my Lowne Aerospace 3, the third one save file. However, guys, I'm so sorry. I apologized for this last week, and I'm already apologizing again. I've once again forgot to add EVA experiments to this craft, so we can't get the Kerbals playing golf or smashing a banana or whatever it is they do when they're on the surface of Dres. So I'm really sorry about that, but hey, we can at least still plant our flag, which is the most important part of any Kerbal excursion. I think you'll all agree. Now, I guess we could just watch the Kerbals disembark one by one, but let's not do that. Let's just crossfade to this beautiful zoom down shot showing how deep we are. And there are the 3 Kerbals on EVA with our Lowne Aerospace flag flying majestically. There, a little panorama view. Whoop, camera went into the terrain a little bit. But yeah, I love that retro-futuristic look of the lander. Do you know what I mean? Do you guys get any kind of bells ringing when you see it? I don't know, I do. Anyway, let's get the Kerbals back on board, I suppose. So, yes, let's just do that. Now, I did retract the antenna of the lander during our descent into the canyon, just to kind of simulate the fact that we would probably, if this was real, almost certainly lose connection with Earth. So I retracted the communications dish to lose our communications with Kerbin, so that, you know, it's like real. It's realistic. Not that anything else in this mission was realistic, but at least that, I think, is somewhat reminiscent of what would happen in the real world. So, I thought it might be nice for this part of the video for me to do a little walk around tour of our spacecraft. Here is the habitation module. Pretend there's some cryo chambers here where the Kerbals can just sit in stasis. I then attempted to transfer between the lower deck and the upper deck, and I just went on EVA instead. So, but we, you know, pretend that we can transfer between the two seamlessly when in deep space. But that was the tour. So now we can think about leaving this place, and this is where things didn't go quite to plan. But you know, first things first. Let's lift off. Feel the power of those 5 aerospike engines effortlessly lifting our craft up towards the top of the canyon, and then once we're up there, we'll open up the communications dish so that we can re-establish contact with our home planet. There we are, we're in an apoapsis of over 8 kilometers, so nice and comfortably safe. I think I usually try and aim for kind of a 30-kilometer apoapsis for bodies like Dres and, I don't know, Mun, Tylo. Just seems like a nice round number to aim for, right? So now that we're clear of the canyon, we can basically burn completely horizontally, so that we're predominantly focusing on increasing our horizontal speed so that we can reach orbital velocity as efficiently as possible. And we've kind of done that, so now we're just time warping up to apoapsis and performing our circularization burn. No maneuver burn required, just no maneuver node required, I should say. We can just do it like this. There we are, just point prograde at apoapsis. And there we are, we have a nice orbit achieved. But we are far from being out of the woods just yet, because as we can see, we have 1,210 meters per second of delta V remaining. I've set Kerbin as our target. Let us now plot a maneuver from low Dres orbit to Kerbin and see if we can get an intersect. Well, as you can see, we're able to get our periapsis around the sun to, you know, intersect Kerbin's orbit, but look at our budget. We haven't the fuel for this. Now, I spent a little while playing around with the maneuver planner tool, but it was no use. And then I thought maybe we can go to Juno and use Juno to give us like a gravity assist to get to Kerbin, but Juno, we're nowhere near the Dres to Juno transfer window. We're not going to get a Juno encounter anytime soon. So then I was like, oh no, we're going to have to... Is this going to be a thing where we're on a lonely planet slowly? But then I had another idea. Whilst we don't have enough fuel to get to Kerbin, we still do have a fair amount left, right? 1.2 kilometers per second. So we could definitely go somewhere. So if we can't get closer to Kerbin, why not go further away from Kerbin? Bear with me here. Instead of trying to go to Kerbin or Juno, let's go all the way out to Jool. It might seem counterintuitive, but after the Sun, Jool has the biggest gravity of any celestial body in stock Kerbal Space Program. So even though we're actually going further away from Kerbin by going to Jool, Jool has such a massive gravity well that we can use it to give us a gravity assist that can take us almost all the way down to Kerbin's height around the Sun. We will need to do a very small retrograde burn because the Julian gravity assist can't get us all the way, but have a look at the map screen. It's getting us below the orbit of Juno, which is, you know, huge. And if we make a little maneuver node on our kind of predicted orbit, let's see, we're going to drag on retrograde. And to get an encounter with Kerbin, it's going to be 332 meters per second, plus 636 to get us the dual encounter. Add those together, the number is, well, it's lower than our budget, which is 1,210 meters per second. So I was like, aha, thank goodness, we're not going to need a rescue. It's just going to be a bit of a slightly longer trip than anticipated for Jebediah, Bob, and Bill Kerbin. But I don't really care. I mean, what can I say? Kerbals love being in space, and they have that 4-seat hitchhiker's storage module, whatever the game piece is called, where, you know, in theory there are like stasis chambers and whatnot, so they can just spend the time in suspended animation. I know I did say, oh, we're so far away from a Dres to Juna encounter, so I disregarded the idea of doing a Juna gravity assist over a dual gravity assist, but the number of years that this little maneuver is going to cost us, it might have just been worth waiting for a Juna encounter. But, you know, it's all done now, so it doesn't really matter. And look, here's me creating a maneuver node on our orbital line prediction, and the numbers, Mason, they all add up. We definitely have the budget to get back home. So, how's that for a tense old mission? Of course, this is all only hypothetical. We do still need to go ahead and see if it will work. I mean, I guess for you guys, you probably just are going to assume it will work because this made it to YouTube, and so I clearly finished the mission. But yeah, I was pretty happy with this thing. I like it when I get thrown an unexpected challenge in Kerbal Space Program. Like, I genuinely was like, oh well, I guess we'll just launch another one on another Saturn V, and you know. Do a rescue mission. It could be like add drama, but you know what? I could use this as a teaching opportunity for myself and also for the viewers, because I was like, oh, I wonder, this is a fun challenge. I wonder if we could use dual as a way of swinging ourselves down, because it's not a very intuitive solution to the problem, right? It doesn't make sense to go even further away from Kerbin when you haven't got the budget to get there. But yeah, look at that. We don't have much fuel left over. I mean, the actual numbers in terms of the amount of fuel we have left versus how much fuel we started with, it seems very low, but we do still have over 200 meters per second of Delta V. It's just the ridiculous launch vehicle had so much fuel in it. But there we are, we have an encounter with Kerbin's sphere of influence. Our periapsis is passing just above the orbit of Minmus, which obviously, that means we're not going to re-enter Kerbin's atmosphere, right? So I'm going to do another maneuver node just so that we're intersecting Kerbin's atmosphere so that we can capture and land, you know. So that's that. Yeah, I feel like I've run out of things to talk about, really, haven't I? Looking at the screen, yeah, I've discussed everything, just fine-tuning the maneuver, and I guess we can go ahead and point towards the maneuver node vector on the nav ball, time warp, and then just go ahead and do it. But yeah, I'm still looking at the screen, like, I love it when I kind of, I don't know if this sounds like weird, but I love when I come up with a lander design as if this is an original design at all. But I just love how this lander came out. I really love retro futurism. You know, it's great, and this came out really, really well. I should probably check out some. So I mentioned at the very beginning of this video during the build process that I felt that this lander resembled a couple of things. One of those things being the North American Rockwell Mars Excursion vehicle, which I'm very well has a mod, a pack, I think associated with it. So maybe that's a cool mod I should check out for a future video. Another one I definitely need to check out is Blue Dog Design Bureau. I know I mentioned at the beginning that we could use the Making History DLC, but there's a mod called Blue Dog Design Bureau, which I think generally is regarded as having far superior Saturn V imitation parts over Making History. But, you know, I wanted to give that mod like its own video to breathe rather than showcasing the focus of this video, which is most of it's being destroyed now. But the rocket, you know, the Saturn... I always forget the name. I have to like write it down so I remember, because it's kind of a convoluted name. The Saturn V 4X parentheses U. There we are. But like I say, it's all pretty much gone now. We are re-entering the atmosphere, and all that is left now is our lowly Apollo-style capsule with its heat shield and parachute. As we cruise over Kerbin's oceans, we're now subsonic with the parachutes deployed. And yeah, what I will do is I'll time warp so we can see the capsule in the daylight, so we can give them a kind of a final salute before the video closes off. But yeah, I mentioned some other kind of contenders for potential cursed rockets of history I could showcase in this series, but I'm all ears. There are loads of weird concepts that I'm sure you might know of that I haven't heard of, so definitely welcome any ideas in the comment section below. And again, If you haven't liked the video and you made it this far, then it is always a big help. The algorithm has been so kind to me recently, so I always do appreciate it. But here we are, just time warping to a lovely sunrise. There we are. Well, I can't see the sun. Let's just pan the camera around, get a good little 360-degree shot, and what a lovely screen to finish on with. Of course, the names on the right-hand side. They're my patrons and my YouTube channel members who make all of this content possible. And they have their very own version of this video that has the craft file as well. You can download it, kind of play around with it. But yes, thank you so much, guys, for making it this far into the video. I very much hope you enjoyed the journey. And I will see you in the next video. Well, I might do No Man's Sky. We're thinking about doing a No Man's Sky.